I lay at the bottom of the hole until the stars came out. Orion the hunter shot straight up into the moon. My dad first showed me Orion's belt. He showed me how once you saw the belt, the rest of him fell into place. He told me he liked the way it looked like the hunter was running and shooting, like Rambo or something. I got lightheaded and I saw Daddy in a tree stand above me, bow season. Daddy lifted out of the tree stand and began to run across the sky. I hollered, but he couldn't hear me. I couldn't reach a rock to throw at him. Then he was gone. The owl settled in a tree above me. I spit out little pieces of leaf. My father built his own truck, put it together from the parts of other trucks. 8 Ford Rangers lined up facing the road. 8 Ford Rangers it took for him to get one to ride back and forth to work. Hubert gave people credit if they'd bring him a Ford Ranger, but they had to park them lined up straight the way Daddy liked them, or it was no deal. The owl hooted. I would go out and sit in one of the Rangers the winter after Daddy died, and Mama started grieving out of a Heaven Hill bottle. I thought about them trucks, and the night got colder and my leg hurt worse. I had to keep my wits about me. Of course you know I survived because I'm telling you the story right now. But you don't know I don't lose a finger, do you? Maybe I lose a foot. Maybe I lose my foot and grieve over it and become a drunk and then a drug addict like Mama. No, I wouldn't be like her. Not the same mistake. A different mistake. I lose my foot and get depressed about it and eat and get so enormous, like 600 pounds, I can't get out of bed. Look like I melted into the sheets. See me unwrapping a whole box of Little Debbie oatmeal cream pies, all 12 pies, so I can cram them in my mouth all at once to suffocate myself. Dawn? Mama stood before me, silver like the dull side of aluminum foil. Mama looked young and clean, her face smoothed out by the hunter's moon. She crouched at the lip of the hole. She wobbled and then steadied herself. She lay her hand on my cheek. Her fingers against my face didn't feel right. What hurts? She said. A flashlight beam lit her from behind. Hubert, Mama said over her shoulder. Hubert put the light in my face, his voice deep behind the shine. What are you doing out here by yourself? Safer by myself than with you, I'd have liked to said, but I didn't say anything. Put your hands up, Hubert said. Hubert lifted me out of the hole and carried me up the hill. His hair was long and greasy. Stubble filled his cheeks outside his mustache and goatee. His miner's jacket opened on a wife beater and smelled of burning plastic and the salve he put on his arthritis. He carried me to the mine road, to a coffee-colored Delta 88 he left in the yard with the keys in it in case somebody needed to move it. Hubert laid me in the back seat. Hubert and Mama got in the front. Where's Mama? I said. She went the other way, Mama said, hunting for you. Hubert and Mama headed up Blue Fork towards Virginia. They said they were taking me to the hospital there. Then they fell to talking about a man who pawned 7 weed eaters for a friend. The weed eaters turned out to be stolen, and now the man who pawned them was facing a charge. They stopped at the man's house, and he came out 300 pounds easy, cheeks and forehead full of acne, all red-rimmed craters and white-topped peaks, wet strings of black hair cut across his face like the lines on a globe. He came to Mama's window. In the back, Cinderella, she said. Cinderella got in beside me. He rubbed his raisin eyes with the heels of his hands and breathed like he was snoring even though he was awake. He cried over a lost girl. She's got me tore all to pieces, he said. I don't care, I said. She was everything to me, he went on. He began to moan like you'd hope your mother would at your funeral. I don't see why, Mama said to Cinderella. She told everybody you stole that church van. She parked it at your mother's house. I know, Cinderella said. She's still going to be your everything, Mama mocked Cinderella, when you go to jail over them weed eaters. Cinderella put his face in his hands and sobbed. Yes, he said. Mama said, I should have drowned you when I had the chance. When was that? Hubert said. 7th grade. God kept Mama from telling that story. Thank you, God. Mama opened a beer and handed it to Cinderella. Here. Cinderella nearly dropped the beer, taking it from Mama when Hubert went too sharp through a curve. Damn, Hubert, Cinderella said. Then he turned to me. What's wrong with your leg? I didn't say anything. This girl is in shock, Cinderella said. She ain't in shock, Mama said. She's my daughter, dummy. I'm in shock at how retarded you are, I said. Hey, Cinderella said. You ain't got no call to talk to me like that. I said, Mama, I'll give you $100 to put the radio on something good and turn it up as loud as it will go." "Loud don't make it good," Hubert said. "Good you don't have to turn up loud." Hubert had been drinking too much. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have said that. He would have sat there still as stone and not said anything, all John Wayne about it. "Give me one of them beers," I said. "I ain't," Mama said. "Give her one," Hubert said. "Might make her nicer." "Go to hell, Hubert," I said. I hadn't been around Mama and Hubert for weeks. It made me sick how easy I fell into their way of talking. Mama handed me a beer. I drank half of it in one pull. "Daggone, Hubert," Cinderella said. "Who is this girl?" Cinderella looked at me. His mouth smelled like he'd thrown up a bale of hay. I said, "Hubert, let me out of this trap." Hubert laughed through his nose at that, and I wanted to break it for him, take that nose and twist it to where the falling rain would drown him. "Dawn, you need to settle down," Mama said. "Drink your beer. Take it easy. It's a holiday." Mama started to sing, "Oh, Come All Ye Faithful." There were new gaps between her teeth. "Joyful and triumphant," she sang. "That's a Christmas song," Hubert said. "No, it ain't," Mama said. "It's a Thanksgiving song." "No, it ain't," Hubert said. "I think she's right, Hubert," Cinderella said. "I think she is." Cinderella nodded at me. "Hey, Cinderella," I said. He looked at me out his raisin eyes. I said, "Give me your knife." "I ain't got a knife," he said. "What do you want a knife for?" "Cut my throat, you're so retarded." "Dawn," Mama said. "Then what's the next line?" Hubert said. "I don't know," Mama said. "Y'all got me flustered." "Oh come ye," I sang, and Hubert joined in on "To Bethlehem." "See?" Hubert said. Mama shook her head. The road wound past broke-down coal camp houses pressed against the blacktop, past the pipes and belts and rows of lights of the processing plant, past wide spots puddled in gray water, places that weren't anything anymore, weren't nature, weren't human, just places left behind. We started up the mountain. A curve snuck up on Hubert while him and Mama were singing some country song, and I got thrown up against Cinderella. The pain in my leg jumped up in my waist, and I hollered out right as I landed against him. He put his arms around me. I put the heel of my hand in his greasy face and shoved. "Get your hands off me," I said. He put his hands up in the air and I went back to my side of the car. Nobody said much the rest of the way to the dinky one-hall hospital across the Virginia line. When we got there, the doctor looked at me standing in the hall and said there wasn't nothing broke and that I could go on. Mama said she was worried about how I was hurting and couldn't he give us something. The doctor sized Mama up and sent us on home. Hubert was taking Cinderella wherever it was they were taking him, and so Mama and I sat in the hospital front room waiting for Hubert. She looked all through her coat pockets for cigarettes, for her keys, for change for a pop, for her lighter, anything to keep from having to look at me. She found the lighter and rolled it over and over in her hands. She said, "This is where they brought your daddy." "Do what?" I said. "After the accident. This is where he died." There was a spot of color in my mother's cheek, just a spot of the way she was before Daddy died, seeping through like blood seeping through a rag. I wanted to wring my real mother out from the rag her body had become. I wanted to wring that rag out over a bucket, pour what I wrung out into some kind of mold, like a jello mold, of my old mama, my good mama, and make her back into what she was. Hubert came through the automatic doors, coughing and sniffing. Mama said to me, "Did your mama give you any money?" When the automatic hospital doors fell closed, it was like I woke up, never knowing I'd been asleep. The spot of color was gone from Mama's cheek. She looked like candle wax. I went out to the car. Cinderella was sitting in the front seat. "What are they doing in there?" Cinderella said. I got in the back seat, reached across the front, and changed the radio to the Bilson station. My own voice came out the speakers. "I love this place," I was saying. "I don't want to see it tore all to pieces." The idiot Cinderella did not recognize my voice on the radio. "Who's that hick?" he said. "These mountains are what we got," my voice on the radio said. "They are what holds us together." "I ain't never heard a girl preacher on there," Cinderella said, and changed the station. When Hubert and Mama came back out, we took off into the darkness, headed for home. Hubert stopped at a place in the woods. A beer store had Budweiser NASCAR flags and the price of cases of beer in 4-foot-high letters all over its outside. Hubert and Cinderella went inside. They came out loaded down with cases of beer. Hubert and Cinderella put the beer in the trunk and got in the car. Hubert gave me a beer. I sat drinking it, and a car full of girls coming home from a night out pulled in. They were dark-headed and older, and their laughs were sharp as cat claws. Cinderella sat eating barbecue pork rinds and looking at the dark-headed girls. He rolled his window down. Icy air rushed in. The girls passed, trailing fake strawberry smell. "Ain't that something," Cinderella said. Hubert grabbed the pork rinds out of Cinderella's hand, got a handful, and dropped the bag in my lap. "Where's your mother?" Hubert said. I hadn't noticed she was gone. I guess she went inside. The girls came out of the store. "You don't know what you're missing," Cinderella said to them through the open window. The girls laughed. Cinderella got out of the car. "Who you laughing at?" "Cin, get back in the car," Hubert said. "Hey," Cinderella said, and grabbed one of the girls by the arm. "Damn it," Hubert said, and got out of the car. My mother came around the side of the building. Snow began to fall. I jumped out of the back as a girl broke a wine cooler over Cinderella's head. Mama shoved her. Hubert grabbed my mother. I slid into the driver's seat and started the olds. I backed out and drove off. Mama and Hubert, Cinderella and the wine cooler girls, they were all screaming. At each other, at me, at the cosmos. Didn't matter which. The snow fell harder. I started home through Astor's Pass, a different way than the way we came. It wasn't until I came through a hairpin curve a third of the way up the mountain that I remembered hearing, if there was any snow on the ground anywhere, not to cross Astor's Pass. I accelerated into a patch of ice on a steep stretch. The car stopped moving, and the wheels spinning sounded like the howling of the wind. The Delta 88 slid backwards and started getting sideways. The car skidded off the guardrail on one side of the road and missed the guardrail on the other side. I closed my eyes as the Oldsmobile began to roll down the mountain. When the car hit a tree and stopped, the ground was against my window. I felt my face for my glasses. They were gone. Tree trunks and branches crossed and recrossed into the headlights. Everything loose in the car, all the cups and unpaid bills, half a 50-pound bag of dog food piled on top of me. I was like the cowboy in the movie when he gets trapped under his horse, except instead of a horse, I was trapped under a pile of my family's crap. Snow fell on my head through the shattered passenger window. I closed my eyes. I must have slept. I woke to the first blue of day, to the crunch and creak of the taped-up car seats. My breath clouded up in front of me and floated past my ear. I worked my legs loose from under the steering wheel, pulled myself up by the passenger seat belt. I stood, ankle throbbing, my head sticking out the hole where the passenger window used to be. A voice came from above. I looked up through deep patches of snow. "Hey there." Daylight soaked into the edges of my cousin Denny's silhouette. He slid down the bank, stood eyeball to eyeball with me, close enough to be in focus. He stuck a finger behind his lower lip and hooked out his tobacco. He was so close I could see the hairs on his beard, clear and red, each one sharp in the morning light like he was on a high-definition television. "Having trouble reaching escape velocity," he said, flinging the lump of minced tobacco to the ground. He rolled his tongue against his lower teeth. "I guess." "I thought I would make a good astronaut," Denny said, spitting out the last pieces of tobacco. "But I never could figure where the sign-up was at. Can you get out of there?" "I don't think so." Denny climbed up on the door. He put his coat around the broken glass edge of the window. "Be careful now," he said, and pulled me up and out. Denny stepped off the car and onto the hillside. He lifted me into his arms. He was barely as tall as I was, and staggered as he leaned back. He got me up the hill to his truck and sat me down in the front seat. He stood with his elbow resting on the open truck door. Denny's breath heaved out of him. He rubbed his belly, put another dip of tobacco in. "You are needed here," he said. Then, "Do you have anything you want to get out of the car?" "What did you say?" I said. His eyes were chocolate and ink. I said, "We need you here, you and your mama, telling the truth. Nobody can say so, but we do. Don't take it personal when people threaten you." "Don't take it personal?" "Ain't nothing gonna happen to you," he said. The woods were snow quiet. "So you want anything out of there?" Denny said. Denny stepped away from me, went out of focus, and my chest tightened. Like my foot when I was little and Mama would draw my shoestrings tight. "That dog food," I said, "and my glasses." Denny made his way down the side of the hill to the car. He cupped his hands to the windshield and looked in. He climbed on top of the car and lowered himself in. I could hear the crinkle of the dog food bag. I could hear him raking loose food into it, separating out the papers and the dirty clothes and the food wrappers. I panted like a black dog. Denny's truck was running. I slid across the front seat, put it in gear, and swung it around. In the rear view, I saw Denny scramble up the hill, grab for the truck bed, but I got away. I rolled down the Kentucky side of the mountain. everything a blur. The truck radio was on an old rock and roll station, Molly Hatchet, flirting with disaster. I turned the knob, moved the number to Bilson Radio. I caught the middle of a song full of tingly guitars. Run, 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 the singer sang. When I turned onto the state road, the truck roared like it hated that music. I stomped the gas again and made it roar some more. Escape velocity. A deep-voiced woman sang about all tomorrow's parties. Another truck, I think it was a Dodge, blinked its lights at me. Blinked its lights at Denny, I guess. I got to the mouth of the creek, and the road widened again as I came into town. I drove past the bootleggers, past the tombstone marker for the old black school, past the tunnels where they moved the river out of downtown. Willett Bilson came on the radio and told me I had been listening to the Velvet Underground, told me he had to go feed chickens and was going to play the whole album again. I pulled up at the stoplight next to the high-rise nursing home old folks apartment building. It crossed my mind to take Denny back his truck. It crossed my mind not to be so hateful about people rescuing me. But when the light turned green, all I wanted was Willett Bilson. I turned left at the flood wall, and I roared past Walmart, the hospital, and out of town. I was on the new road, the bypass cutting through the land of one of Daddy's friends, the one with the horses in a barn where he dropped the hay through the holes in the loft, strings from the bales of hay hanging on a whittled wood peg. I headed for Virginia. The singer said he was waiting for his man. I was well into Virginia, on the river road that ran to the top of Bilson Mountain, when I ran out of gas. I pulled over, listened to the woman sing about the things she does to please, just a little tease, oh, oh, whoa. I leaned forward to see the ridgeline above me, made out the lights on the tower where the Bilson radio signal came from straight in front of me, straight across the river, straight up the hill. People passed, their headlights blinding me. People going to Walmart, to the malls in Tennessee, going to buy stuff, right on schedule, regular people. It was Black Friday. Willett went off the air, and a woman with a voice like Mama's came on. Well, we're going to play this here news story again, about what's going on with our friends over in Kentucky, the lady said, and then we'll have some country gentlemen for you. The voice of Willett Bilson introduced the story about me, about the hearing. If I had gas, I would have gone up that hill and gone in that radio station and grabbed a hold of that Willett Bilson, pulled him in my lap to listen to that story with me. But I didn't have gas. My voice on the radio said, they need to stop permitting these mines is what they need to do. Denny said, ain't nothing gonna happen to me. Said they need me to run my mouth. Said somebody had to say what needed saying. Said he and his daddy had my back, even if they had to say ugly things to my face. Mama's voice came on the radio, said, the governor needs to get involved. I thought of Kenny's baby at the hearing, Kenny's hippie baby in the black onesie, and I wished I could live in a hippie place like that baby did. A place where I could mix up in things and then run away when it got sticky. Go hide and listen to people play the bongo drums till it was time to go out and stir things up again. I'd like to live in a place where doing something righteous was a big party. Mama's escort pulled up behind me, and she got out in a green t-shirt with a frog on it and putty-colored walking shoes she ordered out of the Sunday magazine came in the Lexington paper. She got in the truck. The story about us was still playing on the radio. There's a right thing and a wrong thing, Mama said on the radio, and they know which is which, whether they'll let on like they do or not. And that was the end of the radio story. There was 10 seconds of nothing, and then some guy sang through his nose. She walks through the corn leading down to the river. Her hair shone like gold in the hot morning sun. I turned the radio off. Nice truck, Mama said. I didn't say anything. Didn't have anything to say. Quite a night, she said. The cars kept coming past. Come, all ye faithful. I said, Mama, why do you fight the coal companies? Mama looked me dead in the eye. I don't know. They just make me mad, I guess. We could be doing something else, I said. Mama looked out at a field coated in frost. She said, I used to think things could be different. An SUV slowed down to look at us and then went on by. But I don't guess they could. I felt the crown of my head where I butted Albert at school. It was tender. I've made a mess, I said. Nothing that won't clean up, Mama said. She put her hand out and I put mine in hers. She closed her eyes and I closed mine. She said, let's go get you some gas. We got in the escort and went to the filling station where the river road hit the 4-lane. She filled a gallon can with gas. When we got back to Denny's truck, I got out with her to put gas in. She's so short, I had to help her balance the can. When she finished, she handed me 2 $20 bills. Go on, she said. What do you mean? I said. Keep going. I don't have my license. I don't see no police. I ain't got my glasses. You come this far. Mama opened the truck door. I got in. She stood looking up at me. She looked like a doll, like her head was a dried apple. I rolled down my window. What about Denny? I said. Denny will be all right. I don't know where to go. You know I love you, she said. I nodded. All right, she said. Play it out. And then Mama drove away. When she did, I didn't want to listen to Bilson radio anymore. I didn't want the company of Willett Bilson. I didn't want anything. I drove out to where the river road hit the 4-lane. There was no one behind me, and so I sat there. The longer I sat, harder time I had breathing. Before long, I couldn't catch my breath at all. The truck got all hot inside, and my belly was popping in and out, and I started banging the window glass with the heel of my fist. It was like there was bad air in that truck cab. Then a woman in an Astro van pulled up behind me, and she was talking to her baby in the back seat. I could almost hear her talking in my rear view. And I was all right. My breath came back. I scratched out, turned left across traffic towards Kingsport. Before I got to Gate City, I stopped at a restaurant in a stand of pines. It was an old place, all glass across the front. When I got inside, the place smelled more like a bar than a restaurant. I sat down in a booth. The waitress asked me if I wanted coffee, and I nodded. The sun broke through the window, and the ceramic cup she set in front of me steamed. Snow thickened on the pavement outside, and an old man in a felt hat fell right on his behind coming in. He picked himself up, but he left his hat laying in the gravel. On the wall between the windows at my booth, there was a picture in a dime store frame of an airplane landing in the straightaway in front of the restaurant. My brother and I sat with our parents in places like this many a night when we were little, trading punches by the light of a jukebox. What can I get you? The way the waitress chewed her gum reminded me of every girl I ever hated. I said, I need another minute. The waitress didn't smile when she said, Honey, you all right? Last night I was at the hospital, I said. The waitress dropped her hands to her side, but her jaw kept working that gum. They had a TV bolted to the wall. I put my hands around my coffee mug and squeezed it. The warmth, the squeeze, made me feel better. There was an astronaut movie on. That was true. There was. One of the astronauts was floating around outside the spaceship, breathing through a huge long tube like a professional carpet cleaner uses. The waitress sat down. I seen that. The dude's tube broke loose from the spaceship and it flopped real slow like a water snake. The waitress showed me how the tube flopped with her arm. It was exactly the way it was. I nodded at the waitress, and the astronaut turned real slow away from the ship, head over heels. I leaned toward the waitress, twisting out into the nothing. And they showed a close-up of his face, the waitress said, and he was smiling. It was so creepy, the waitress said. Yes, it was. The waitress stood up. She shook her head and popped her ballpoint open and touched the point of it to my page in her order book. She raised her chin like my time was up. She was wanting to be tough, but her eyes had a rattled look. At least I thought they did. I ordered chocolate chip pancakes and a chocolate milkshake. When the waitress went to put the order in, I went out to the truck and got in. And then I come on home.